All right, so welcome. So my name is Kelsey. I am the Brand Experience Manager here at CMA. Once again, thank you all for joining us. Today, we are going to start out by introducing our team members here and what they're seeing in terms of social media from a client standpoint, just from an industry experience standpoint. And then we're going to dive into the submitted questions that you all submitted for your registration. There was a lot, so if we don't get to all of them today, I do apologize. We will be following up as soon as possible. And as soon as possible after the webinar concludes, we'll be following up with a replay of the webinar as well as any additional questions that we didn't get to today. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Ken. If you want to give us a little bit insight into what you're seeing in social media world right now. Well, let's take you off mute there.
There we go.
There you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ken Hitchner. I am Director of Content Strategy at CMA. And what that basically means is I help companies and organizations tell their story, but in a way that builds their reputation and relationships as well as their revenue. Now, I've done this for a while, different spaces from government and politics to B2B and B2C. And I can tell you there's one thread that runs through it all, and that is a brand is really nothing more than a story that makes a promise, meaning it sets expectations. And I can tell you there's no better time to tell your organization's story than during a time of uncertainty like the one we're in right now. And I'll tell you why. Because people are awake right now. People are listening right now. We're all looking for a path forward. So I can tell you when it comes to how we're messaging to our clients, and it doesn't really matter what industry they're in, we have the same message for all our clients, and that is during a time of uncertainty, you need to make and position your company to be part of the solution. Okay, it's simple as that. And the reason why is because everyone's got a problem. That's why you need to be part of a solution. So if you are able to transform your company, and I'm going to get into some specifics in a little bit, on how to transform your company into being part of the solution, you will protect two of your greatest assets, reputation and your relationships. Because if you're able to do that, everything you will have lost during this period of time will come back to you in the form of a multiple. So that's a very powerful story by itself.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to kick it over to Kelly now.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly. I am CMA's social media specialist. So I handle Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube accounts for each of our social media clients. And our clients range from lighting manufacturers to banks to nurses associations and pretty much everything in between. So our clients have been getting a very tailored approach to the messaging and content that we're putting out on their social media platforms right now. But across the board, we have been making sure to keep the tone very helpful, informative, tuned into today's current environment, but most importantly, just keeping the lines of connection open, making sure that our clients are able to communicate with their audience, and if their audiences have questions, that we're relaying that back and forth and just making sure that all of the questions are answered during this time.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know from a company standpoint, CMA ourselves, we're doing very similar tactics in terms of just trying to be very helpful during this time. That's why we want to host as many of these conversations as we can, and try to help you guys with the different solutions that we provide as a company and how you can kind of get involved, especially with social media, since so much of the conversations are online right now. So without further ado, since we do have a lot of questions we'd like to get through today, and again, thank you all so much. If you're just tuning in, I see a few more people have just joined us. We're going to try to get to as many as we possibly can that have been submitted. If we do not get to your question, we will be following up over the next couple of days with a replay of this webinar, as well as all of the questions responded to by our team here today. So let's start. So with the first question we have today, and we do have a few of the same types of questions here. So what are some of the best practices for social media during this time? Ken, from a messaging standpoint, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when it comes, number one, I mentioned just a minute ago, the message is be part of the solution, whatever industry you're in right now. That's because everyone has a problem right now. And it's really being part of the solution means one thing for one organization. It's going to mean something totally different for another one. It depends on what you're doing, what field, that kind of thing. So the best way I can talk to you about this is just I share with you what we're doing with our clients now in the last 3 weeks during the state of emergency. So being part of the solution for APSNA, which is a group of pediatric surgical nurses, they wanted to communicate and help their members cope with COVID-19 from afar, right? They have a national membership. So we helped them with their first Facebook Live event, which is a huge success. And right now we're in talks with them to do even more. So that's how they were being part of the solution during COVID-19. Another example would be the New Jersey State Nurses Association. 3 weeks ago, they did a massive statewide call out. They were able to recruit 1,900 additional nurses to serve on the front lines in healthcare systems throughout the state of New Jersey. We helped them with that. That's how they chose to be part of the solution. First Bank is one of the fastest growing community banks in the United States. The way they became part of the solution is by offering their own thought leadership about the Paycheck Protection Program, which came out a few weeks ago as a program backed by the feds. They went from doing, I don't know, like 5 to 6 small business administration loans applications a year to like 500 in a 48-hour period. We helped them in a matter of minutes, literally. We basically set up a virtual news bureau for them, and we put them in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times 3 times in the last couple of weeks, CNBC, CBS News, Politico, the Washington Post. It goes on and on and on. But again, how they chose to become part of the solution is by offering their thought leadership. Another great story happens to be one of our clients, Sourland Mountain Spirits. This is a craft distillery. Ironically, COVID-19 shut them down. They basically sent their workers home. They shut down the whole operations. Their just demand were wiped out because of the virus outbreak. Okay. Then they had an idea. Well, what's the one thing a distillery has on hand? Alcohol. And what's the one thing that kills viruses, including COVID-19? Alcohol. So according to the CDC, if you make a solution with at least 70% of it being alcohol or greater, it will kill COVID-19. So they transformed their whole factory into a hand sanitizer factory. They're now making hand sanitizer. They called all their workers back. They're working around the clock. I mean, they're delivering these shipments of hand sanitizer to first responders in the state of New Jersey. In fact, they've already made large shipments to Penn Health in Princeton, the healthcare system there, RWJ in Hamilton, Capital Health in Trenton. They're working around the clock, but they totally transformed their business. And ironically, the CEO has told me once the whole COVID-19 kind of goes away and we kind of go back to some sense of normal, they are going to start producing craft spirits again, but they're going to keep the line and they're going to continue making hand sanitizer. So this is just a couple real world examples of what we've seen in the last 3 weeks. These are companies that have decided to be leaders in their own respective areas. They understand that when you make time to help others, you are able to make a difference. And this is kind of what it looks like when you choose to make yourself, your company, part of the solution.
True. And I think, yeah, that's a great point, is one of those same commonalities, even though all of those different examples are different industries, is that, we're all trying to help right now. And a lot of that help is being viewed online on social media. I know just from Sourland Mountain, I read about that on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and those are the types of conversations that consumers, B2B, people want to get involved in, and it's all happening online right now. All right, so next question. All right, so with the current environment, which social media platform is receiving more views? And kind of going along with that, what is the best social media platform right now and why? Kelly, I know you're really heavily involved in that. Do you have any insight?
Absolutely, that's a great question. And just to give you some quick stats on this, LinkedIn reported that activity is up by 55% this month. Facebook and Instagram reported that views on live videos doubled in a week in the countries that are being hit hardest by the virus. And Facebook even mentioned that they're experiencing new records in usage almost every single day. So across the board, social media engagement is up as of late, just because people are at home more. They're not commuting into work or their offices. They're not running the kids around. They're just spending time in their houses. So they have more time on their phones on social media. So the best platform for you to be on right now is just the one that your audience is already actively engaged on. And if you're not really sure what platform that might be for your business, that's totally fine. There's a few easy questions that might help you dive into that deeper. So first, you can take a look at the number of followers you have on each of your social media platforms. This will give you a sense of kind of where your audience lies, what platforms they might be on. But the second thing I want you to look at is really important, and that's the engagement on a few of your latest posts on each platform. Looking at this in particular is going to show you what platform your audience might be on right now, and that might give you a better sense of the platform that you're going to be able to reach them best in this moment, and that might be the one to focus on. So even if you might not have as many followers on Instagram or LinkedIn, but that's where you're seeing more of the engagement coming in on your posts, it might be a better opportunity for you to communicate with your audience there.
Yeah, those are some great points. And I know, following up on this, if you didn't catch it in the beginning and you tuned in a little bit late, I will be following up with all attendees in a few days. Our team will, with a replay of this webinar along with these questions and responses, so that way you can kind of really read through them. And what Kelly's diving into right now, we'll actually do a little tutorial for you so you can see how you can do that and check that out for your business. All right. How do you suggest keeping your audience engaged in a lighthearted manner without sounding cavalier to what is happening? Another one along those lines is, how can we make sure what we put out there isn't just noise? Ken, I think messaging might be a huge player here. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, when it comes to the topic of lighthearted fare, my thing is, look, unless you're promoting a comedy club, you don't feel compelled to try humor at this point. You know what I mean? You got to be very careful with that. When you're doing social media for a company as opposed to your own assets, what you put out there represents every employee. So what I'm saying is, just because I think something's funny doesn't mean my boss thinks it's funny. It doesn't mean my clients and customers think it's funny. So I would be very careful about that. If you still say, well, I want something more lighthearted, fine, play it safe, go with something that's cute as opposed to hilarious, which could get you in trouble. Go with something that inspires hope or inspiration. That kind of lighthearted humor, that would work. Beyond that, my other recommendation would be, if something gives you pause, I would basically form my own internal focus group of my own work colleagues, and I would send them the stuff before I publish. I'd make sure I get people who have different life experiences. I mean, people in different ages, different genders, different ethnicities. And I'd ask them, hey, here's 5 pieces I'm thinking about putting up. What do you think? Do you think it's funny? I mean, get their reaction from it. That's what I would do, just to kind of play it safe.
That's a good point. I think your colleagues can be your greatest asset in terms of trying to figure out what you should be putting out there right now. Yeah. And in terms of kind of cutting through the noise, I know, you're on social media all day long and that's just all you see. Do you have any thoughts in terms of how people can make their message stand out?
For me,
yes,
again, you have to be helpful.
Yep.
So again, I tell people all the time, look, the truth is people are too busy to read the next post you're going to publish on your social channels. But if you make it helpful and relevant to them, they will make time to look at your next post on social channels. So again, you have to make it about them, make it meaningful, keep it real, and you'll cut through the noise.
Very true. Kelly, do you have any thoughts on execution in terms of cutting through the noise or keeping it lighthearted?
Sure. I completely agree with everything Ken said. I think it's really important to just make sure your message is meaningful. And when it comes to talking about this kind of stuff, just make sure your content is relatable and be honest about what we're all experiencing. People are absolutely seeking an escape right now from the news, but it's very important to keep your message appropriate. And just to give a few examples of things we've done for clients kind of in this sense, Amerlux, a lighting manufacturer, we created a video that features a few of their sales reps in their new remote workspaces. And the purpose of this is to kind of show that even with kids running around in the background and doing laundry, and your home office might be in your garage, but we're all in this together, and their sales reps are here to help you no matter what your situation is. And when your projects pick back up, they'll be there to help you again. Another client, which Ken mentioned earlier, a nurses association, we hosted a Zoom webinar for them that we streamed live to their Facebook page. And I have to say, first of all, thank you to all of our frontline workers, because watching this live webinar was, it was unbelievable. But it was so important for their audience because they just needed a place to talk and a forum to talk about what they're all going through and what they're all experiencing. So I think just start thinking about how you can provide your audience some relief from what's going on while keeping your message professional and appropriate.
No, that's good. With the nurses thing, I tuned a little bit. I was kind of tuned into that, and it was really great to see. I know, healthcare workers are going through so much right now, but I think it's that connection, it's that virtual connection that you can get through social media right now that people are seeking and craving.
Absolutely.
All right. So in terms of strategy, okay, so should your social media strategy change, or should you just keep putting out the same types of posts? Kelly, what have we been seeing really from a client standpoint?
This is a great question. And as businesses, of course, right now we do have a very unique opportunity because we know that our audiences are spending more time on social media. So we're able to reach them maybe more than we could on a normal basis. But the content we're putting out there should definitely not be business as usual, because that's not what's happening right now. So I think it's just really important to, even if you want to put out the same types of posts, meaning promotional posts about your offers or your services, make sure they're addressing the current environment and what we're all going through in some way. You can think about how your offer or service is helping people through this time, or you can simply address the fact that your company is here to help and we're all in this together. And I think from a strategy perspective, this is a perfect opportunity as well to establish yourself as a leader in your industry. Think about topics that you can educate your audience on. And since live video views are up on Facebook and Instagram, hop on a live video real quick for 10 or 15 minutes, whatever you can do, and just do a quick how-to, share tips on some form of educational content that your audience will appreciate. Doing so will build trust with your audience, and that's something they will absolutely remember when we all come out of this.
That was a great point. Okay, and the next one could definitely piggyback off of that. What kind of messaging can you put out on the following channels to be a part of the COVID-19 conversation? So I guess breaking it down even further between Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, are they all the same? Are they a little bit different? Ken, from a content standpoint, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so two thoughts. One is, when it comes to messaging on different social channels, we need to have a discussion about one, culture, and the second one is tone, right? So there's a lot of social media channels out there, but they're not all the same just because they're all online, right? So, Facebook and Instagram, that's more about play, why Twitter and LinkedIn's more about work, for example, right? So Facebook's about your friends and Instagram's about your friends, right? So, there's a lot of nuance in there. And so you need to create messaging that goes along with that culture, right? The second part is tone, and that is, again, what's hot right now on social channels from a content topic perspective. Things that rhyme with hope, authenticity, inspiration, aspiration. That's the kind of tone. So when it comes to messaging on specific channels, make sure you know the culture before you start posting, and make sure that you start hitting the notes, the good stuff, meaning the proper tone as well.
Mm-hmm. And I know we kind of touched base on this with some of the other questions, but in terms of the different platforms and the types of posts, I'm sure Kelly definitely has some further examples from clients, but the usage of videos versus graphics versus quotes versus how-tos versus links to the website. Kelly, do you have some examples from clients?
Absolutely. So, as we've mentioned, it does vary from client to client, but for one in particular, First Bank that Ken brought up before, we've been doing pretty much a mix of content from outside sources because we want to provide educational value to their audience right now. A lot of their audience needs information on what the government is doing about small business loans, for example, or that kind of thing. So a lot of that has been industry articles from outside sources, but at the same time, we're also promoting the fact that they have mobile banking services that their audience can take advantage of as well, since they don't really want to come into the bank right now. So I think, from a different platform perspective, your message can change from platform to platform, but as long as you're keeping it consistent, you're keeping your message consistent and helpful, I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. All right, so not only what is the best platforms or what you should be posting on each platforms, but the next question is there a best time of day or time of week that we should be posting right now?
So this is another one that actually relates to your business's specific audience, and it's going to vary from business to business. We've been seeing different results for this for each of our clients. Some clients have been getting more engagement on the weekends lately, whereas other clients have been getting more engagement on weekdays. And an easy way to kind of dive into this more for your business, I can walk through it for each platform really quickly, but for LinkedIn, you can navigate to your update analytics on your business page, and this will show you a chart of your page's impressions every single day. From there, you can kind of dive into it deeper and see if there's specific days of the week that are standing out that have spikes in that traffic. On Facebook, you can navigate to your page insights, and on the left-hand side, there's going to be a panel. Go immediately to the post section because there is so much information that Facebook provides to you, and it can be overwhelming at times. But if you go to the post section, the view you're going to get is very, very helpful for this question. It's going to show you each day of the week, and it'll give you specific numbers of what amount of your audience is on each day. And then from there, it actually dives into hour by hour each day. So you can get a very clear picture of when your audience is active online and when you can be posting these updates. Instagram is kind of similar, but you're going to have to do it on your phone. So on the mobile app, you are going to navigate to your insights, go to the audience tab, and then you're going to have to scroll all the way to the bottom. And it's going to give you a quick little overview, very similar to Facebook, of what days of the week and what hours each day your audience is active online. And then finally, for Twitter, you can head to your tweet analytics, and it'll show you a breakdown of how many impressions your account received each day. This one is similar to LinkedIn, but you'll be able to see trends if there's any days of the week that are standing out. And if you didn't catch all of that, no worries, because as Kelsey mentioned before, we put together a quick little video, which you'll receive in a follow-up email.
Absolutely. I know it could be really overwhelming trying to figure out when you should be posting, but those tools really are helpful for each platform to really determine the time you can spend and which days you should be spending your time online and on social media. Okay, we're rolling right through. This is great. Get through all these questions. All right, so next question. What types of posts or conversations should your business be staying away from to ensure your brand stays intact? I know this kind of deals with the whole crisis communication area. Ken, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, you should stay away from conversations that drive people away. That's the short answer, right? So don't be political, don't be insensitive, don't be too self-serving. Those things tend to drive people away. So the object of social media, as well as other marketing channels, is you want to bring people, specifically your target audiences, closer to you, right? So what I'm saying is if you want someone to become involved with your brand, you need to get them involved with your brand. Social media is a great cost-effective way to do that. So, and the other neat thing about social media is it is actually social distancing. Social media is the best form of social distancing because you can still talk to people, you can still build relationships with people, you can still do business with people. So it's one of my favorite forms of social distancing. So I'm pro social distancing.
I'm with you on that. I mean, even Facebook, even if you just want to converse with your friends virtually online, you could use Facebook groups. Obviously, you have private messages and Snapchat, even Instagram. And those are all great ways for social distancing on social media.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is a good balance between selling services and being sensitive during this time? I know we've touched on that a little bit, but maybe we can dive into that a little bit more. Ken, from a messaging standpoint, do you have any thoughts on the balance between those two kind of parallels with selling versus sensitivity?
Yeah, so the short answer is it should be a lot less of selling right now, right? So it should be a lot more helping. And I think I would take my cues in terms of when do I transition back to the old norm, if you will, is just when society tells me to, right? So what I'm saying is if you've been paying attention to the news cycle recently, it appears our public officials will soon come out with a timetable as to when people will go back to work, so to speak. And I would use that as kind of my lead for the kind of content mix I would do, right? So for example, I don't think everyone's going to go back to work in X weeks from now, but I think some industries will go back, and then a couple of weeks later, a couple more industries will go back. So I would start, moving back to my traditional content mix as we go back to work, so to speak. I mean, physically
Right.
there.
Right. The old normal versus the new
Right.
normal. Kelly, you dove into a couple examples for our clients, but do you have any additional, stories or what you're doing right now from a balance standpoint between selling versus the sensitive topics?
Sure. So, of course, it is going to vary. If you want to put hard numbers to it, let's say you put up 5 posts a week. That's your typical amount that you put up on Facebook every single week. And your usual breakdown would probably be 3 promotional, maybe 1 outside source, and maybe 1 is educational or inspiring or something of that nature. I would say for now, bring it down to 1 maximum of promotional selling your services. And I don't want to say it's wrong to sell your services or anything like that right now. I just think it still has to have that twist of we understand what's going on and we're here to support you in this time. I think right now the best thing you can do is to focus on that educational content and really help build your business or your organization as a leader in your industry and build that trust with your audience.
Absolutely. I know, Ken, you always say all the time, helping is selling, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the one big thing that's happened since we moved from an analog world where print was king to now a digital world, right? So, I mean, the great news is all your clients and prospects are only 1 click away from you. That's great news. But here's the bad news: they're also 1 click away from all your competition. And so the question is, okay, so how do I increase my odds that they click on my website as opposed to someone else's? And it gets back to helping is the new selling, right? I mean, that's how you bring people closer to you. That is the secret to commitment. If you want someone to commit to you, you got to get them involved with you. So that's really it in a nutshell.
Absolutely. All right. Oh, this is a good one. What are the best parameters to use when boosting posts? Kelly, I know you've done a few of those different tactics for our clients, right?
Yeah, so we've actually had to shift a lot of strategies with this lately. One client in particular, it's a local, we partner with the airport, and we had a Facebook advertising campaign going that was kind of giving away gift cards just to kind of build up the community aspect. And the gift cards were for local, restaurants, places like that. So we completely shifted that strategy for right now because people aren't going to the restaurants. And while it's still great to, get the business out there, we're doing it organically, but we're shifting to a different approach with the advertising aspect of it. So I think you can still put money behind your posts and you can boost your posts, but just make sure that you really think through your ad strategy right now. And if you're going to promote something on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever it may be, I would focus more on making it that educational, helpful content that's going to build trust with your audience.
Absolutely. That's a good point. All right, next question. And for the audience here, everybody that's has joined in with us, we are going to get through as many questions as possible. But I would like to open it up in just a few minutes to all of you here today. If you want to put a question in the chat box, a thought, maybe something you're experiencing from your business, the Q&A section in this chat, we'll get to those shortly as well. So next question we do have here is, what are some ways to utilize social media for a services-based company? This one is actually very specific to civil engineering rather than product-based. So service-based versus product-based. Ken, do you have any thoughts from kind of a messaging or content or positioning standpoint?
I mean, it doesn't really matter in terms of whether it's a product or service. There's three key customer milestones you need to be aware of. Point number one is the date someone heard about your business, right? They know your business exists. That's point number one. Point number two is when they hired you to perform a service. That's point number two. And point number three is the next time they hired you to perform a service, deliver it, right? So that's called repeat business. In between those 3 points is what we call nurturing. And that's where social media falls in. So whether it's a product or service, from a social media perspective, you need to always continue to nurture, because you don't know where everyone is. Everyone's in a different part of the buy cycle. So that's what I would have to say. Nurture, nurture, nurture on social media.
That's a good point. And I think it's good to just not stay silent, right? No matter what company you are, it's just always that nurturing is that you're always there for them, whether it's service or product based. Okay, so right now I do want to leave some time to open it up to all of you who have joined us today. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat box, in the Q&A box here. We will be following up in just a few days with all of you with the questions and responses laid out, as well as a replay of this webinar. I know there's been a lot thrown at you today and some great thoughts and tips for you to take away. So we want to make sure that you have fully receive that information and can take it to run for your business as the weeks go on. We do have a question that came in, so I'm going to open this up to both of you if you want to take it as you kind of hear the question. But do you feel it is a time that nonprofits can solicit for donations? Ken, do you want to start us off? Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, my first question would be, can we tie your nonprofit to COVID-19, right? So, we're in talks with some nonprofits that, Meals on Wheels, for example. So again, they can make a great case that they're actually one of the first responders, right? So they're still delivering to homebound people who don't have the means. So they're putting themselves in a situation where they could be infected, but they're still doing it. I mean, they're first responders, right? So that's a nonprofit. So yes, I think they can, and I think, for example, they can also tie their efforts back to COVID-19, which I think will increase the chance that they'll receive donations. So that would be my first question: is it a nonprofit that can be tied in some way to COVID-19? Because I would leverage that.
Kelly, I think just from a kind of a client example standpoint, you've kind of seen some of that over the past few weeks with some of our clients.
Yeah, I agree with what Ken's saying. I think if you can tie it into COVID-19, that might be beneficial just to get the message out there more. But if you are going to solicit for donations, I think that Facebook would be the way to go for this, because it has that great donate feature built right into it. Ken and I were actually talking about this the other day. So if you get people sharing that donation that you're looking for, people will share it to their timelines and set a goal for how much you're trying to raise, and people will see, they'll get that visual of, okay, here's how much they've set, I can help contribute to that goal. I think that's kind of more like a psychological thing when people see that bar on Facebook of how much has been raised and this is what the goal is set at. So I think you can do it. There's a way to do it right now that, as Ken mentioned, could be more beneficial by tying it into the current situation. But yeah, I think you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of seen a lot of that too, especially on Facebook. That is definitely one of the better avenues to be able to reach your audience from a nonprofit standpoint. Do we have any other questions? Whether it's how, I know we've kind of dived in a little bit with how much you should be posting, days of the week. Do you have specific thoughts or questions on your industry? We'd love to answer them. And again, if you don't feel comfortable with kind of having us dive into it on the live call, I will be leaving up how you can get in touch with us in just a few minutes after the call. And once again, we will be sending you all of these responses as well as a replay of the webinar. So I'll leave a couple more minutes open for any further discussions, but as we kind of wind down, Ken, Kelly, do you guys have any kind of concluding thoughts on the world of social media and COVID-19?
Sure, I'll go. So of course, all of us are going through it right now. I think the most important thing you can do at this time is address the situation from every channel that your business or organization is on. Make sure you're putting a message out there. And then really don't be afraid to dive into that educational valuable content. That's what your audience is looking for right now. They need your help, they need answers. So I think that's really what's going to set you apart in your industry, is just putting that educational content out there.
Very true. And Ken, I think, one of the most important thing is not to stay silent, right? All of our clients and ourselves especially, we don't want to stop being a part of the conversations. It's just kind of shifting how we're being a part of the conversations right now, right?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting business time, right? So what I'm saying is, clients through normal times, they hire us to build their leadership, their thought leadership, for example, right? To build their brand awareness. So more and more see them, more of their prospects, right? And then what we see is there's a trend where when a crisis happens, they kind of pull back, right? It's kind of like a defensive positioning. And what I try to counsel them on time and time again is, this is the time to tell your story. I mean, this is the best time to tell your story, right? So this is not the time to go away. I mean, leaders take a step forward, not a step back. So this is the time to shine. And to Kelly's earlier point, more people are paying attention to social media today than 4 weeks ago. So you're even going to get a bigger return if you don't hide, but you go out of your way to just take a step forward.
Absolutely. Okay, we do have a question, the essential business versus the non-essential. So if you're an essential business, but some of your projects aren't completely essential right now, do you avoid talking about it at all? An example from the specific industry is that they're working in schools. So, but that doesn't have to do with COVID, but it is important. They are a service company for schools, or a telecommunications company. Ken, do you have any thoughts from a content standpoint?
So the question is, they're asking if they should continue? What?
Some of their projects aren't completely essential right now, but they're part of an essential business. So do they avoid talking about the non-essential projects right now? Or is it, if it's important, should they still try to get the message out?
If it's still important, they should get the message out. Yeah. So, and again, I would play up and leverage the part that is essential. I mean, again, I know a little, I don't have enough background here on this one, but I mean, if it's about the school or the classroom and they're making it better, especially during this time, I would definitely play that up and take advantage of that. Sure.
Very true. We do have another question. So the fine art industry, thoughts on the fine art industry for posting on social media. We actually are involved with one of our clients that's in the fine art photography industry. So Kelly, I know you're working with them. Do you have any examples for them?
Absolutely. So this is an association that we work with for photographers internationally. We have had to shift their social media strategy lately because they had an event that was coming up that was canceled. And a lot of the social media posts that we typically would put out there would be member promotions highlighting the member galleries, which are currently closed. So we have had to make changes to their social media strategy, but we are still focusing on featuring the members and promoting them and leveraging the content that they already have. Some of them are putting out really great blog series or webinar series right now, speaking with other artists in the industry or things like that, just to kind of start conversations even when people can't really be face to face. In addition to that, we've been posting a lot of outside resources as well. So things like the National Endowment for the Arts, stuff like that, they're posting a lot of information right now about how the government is helping the fine art industry and things of that nature. So I think finding those resources that will appeal to your audience, whether or not it makes sense to do things that appeal to fine art industry, because I'm not totally sure if you're looking to consumer or if it's more an association like what we have, but just finding things that appeal to your audience or creating the conversations, even if it has to be virtual for now.
Right. We do have a few more questions coming in, but since we do have a few more minutes, I just wanted to touch base again and say if you have a specific question or thought that you'd like us to kind of touch on, please feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A section of this live discussion. So with that, the next question we have is, do you think it's beneficial during this time to follow up with clients or potential clients via email or call about something that you posted on social media? Ken, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, it's about how you do it, right? So you may want to give them an update and then at the end of it, ask them about whatever you have in mind. For example, like, we're still open. I just want to let you know, or this is how you can easily contact us, or this is how you can leverage us for educational sessions if that's plays into it. So I would lead with that and then get into the question that I was kind of really wanting to know.
Right, absolutely. All right, so as we wind down, I did want to touch base again and say that thank you all so much for your questions. I'm going to be throwing up in just a few seconds how you can contact us, how you can stay in touch with us, but we will be following up in just a few days as we say goodbye here with the replay and all of the responses that we've gone through today, and even the ones that we weren't able to touch base on, or if you have any additional questions that pop up, please feel free to reach out to us. So we're going to be signing off in just a few. So I want to thank you all for joining us today, and we will be continuing these conversations. And thank you to Ken and Kelly for being a part of this conversation on social media and lending all of your expertise. So with that, I am going to pop up how you can get in touch with us. And once again, thank you all so much. Stay in touch with us via social media. These are all our social media channels here. We are at CMA Results on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Here's an email that we can get in touch with you if you have any very specific questions about your business or brand on social media during this time. But with that, thank you all so much for joining us, and we will be continuing these conversations in the weeks to come. So please keep in touch with us and stay tuned for those. So thank you all. Thank you, Ken, Kelly, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.